Merry Christmas, everyone. Yeah, I know we're going to be talking about some really morose stuff here, but it will get better throughout the entire day. I've got a bunch of other cool stuff going on, and yeah, I just wanted to take the time because this is sort of an evergreen topic, and we're just going to look at the effects of the COVID lockdowns. And it's a bunch of stuff that, I don't know, it just doesn't sit well with me because, as we can see here, I got a couple of articles pulled up from the Federalist, and, I kind of like their editorial style that they got here. And yeah, at least they back it up with some stats as well. And, well, first and foremost, CDC data suggests you should cite your expert sources, of course, and the CDC, hey, chief among them, they suggest the lockdowns could kill as many people as COVID. And as we're going to see in the second story as well, that is definitely 100% absolutely happening. But both this story is from November 4th, probably went a little bit under the radar based on what happened, give or take November 4th. And the other one is from a little bit earlier in the year, but yeah, it's still highly, highly important and very relevant. So 350 years ago, John Gott attempted to give Londoners an accurate assessment of fatality rates of diseases in a community so people could understand their risk levels. Until COVID-19, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention fulfilled the same role. Then the CDC abandoned tradition and sensibility and treated COVID differently than every other disease. And it's not because it's as deadly as something like Ebola, the Black Plague, or even the fucking Spanish flu. It's because COVID was politically expedient. I think we can kind of come to that conclusion at this point, other than, just using your eyes. Let me just give you a couple of examples how it's been politically expedient. Look at the entire election, okay? What was the entire platform of the Democrats? Trump has bungled his response to COVID-19. Okay. Mail-in balloting and all of the changes that came into the way that the previous general election was ran. That never would have happened without COVID. Destroying the greatest economy of at least this generation, if not of, several generations in a row. It was the perfect storm of things, and it wouldn't have been this bad if there wasn't a legitimate excuse from their side. I'm not saying this is legitimate whatsoever, but for them to just enact all of these harebrained, fucking expedient, crazy ass measures if they didn't have to take on Hitler and defeat him at all costs. So, I don't know. For a death to be considered a COVID death, COVID no longer needed to be an immediate or underlying cause of death. Holy fuck. Now a death is considered a COVID death, even if COVID was only a contributing condition. And that's when we came to those 96% of deaths required 2 or more comorbidities in order to be a part of the CDC numbers. That's what it was. Only 4% of actual cases, the direct cause of death was COVID. Yeah, exactly. You don't hear that anymore. But then again, Joe Biden is still trumpeting this is going to be the worst time in fucking human history. But anyways, Singapore, for example, only counts deaths as COVID deaths if they are accompanied by pneumonia. Seems relevant because that's what most other people have on their death certificate. Oh, also, there's like gunshot wounds and fucking motorcycle crashes. Anyways, if the United States followed this criterion, COVID deaths would be only about 90,000 and comparable to a very bad flu season. Yes, normally you expect between 60 and 80,000 deaths per flu season, but because we just keep this fucking running total going, this is just going to look like the world's shittiest flu season in perpetuity forever. Oh, that'll probably stop when Biden's inaugurated, right? Yeah, exactly. To disentangle respiratory COVID deaths from other types of COVID deaths requires examining individual death records, which are difficult to obtain. Fortunately, in May, Florida released data on 1,489 COVID deaths. About 2/3 of those deaths that listed more than just COVID as a cause also listed respiratory conditions. And those are some of the numbers that we looked at in some videos in the past. And yeah, that's absolutely what it is. And all of the articles are always linked in the description below. You guys know that at this point. But there's, of course, just little links in there as well just to prove up, and they cite their sources. So that's why I like to use the Federalist. Applying these 2/3 estimates to the current official tally of 240,000 U.S. COVID deaths, it's much higher than that, but we're also not looking at just a regular flu season at this point. So about half of the approximate 300,000 excess deaths the United States has experienced this year, according to the CDC's latest estimate dated October 3rd. The 300,000 number is determined by subtracting the 2,240,000 fatalities the CDC estimates we could expect to have seen from January to October if 2020 were a typical year from the 2,540,000 deaths we have actually suffered. Yeah, that's pretty good, and that was the number that Trump always cited in all of the debates there. He said the excess mortality rates, the United States was actually leading the charge in those. They were, if not the highest, one of the highest. And yeah, fucking shit looks good, guys. That begs the question, what are causing the remaining 140,000 deaths? Now we gotta get into the fucking sad stuff. And sorry, I know it's Christmas, but this is very important stuff. And I also want to talk about, shit that's not always so fucking happy flappy and might end on a positive note. Hopefully we do. Anyways. Although the CDC records are far from comprehensive, they do provide some explanation. So far in 2020, the CDC data shows there have been about 32,000 excess Alzheimer's deaths and 12,000 excess diabetes deaths. Yes, that is sad. The Alzheimer's deaths are particularly heart-wrenching as it represents people literally dying from loneliness and a lack of human interaction. Merry Christmas, everyone. The excess diabetes deaths could be due to an interruption of normal healthcare operations. Yeah, exactly. There are several things that you have to go in for, and diabetes is one of those comorbidities that significantly, and I'll put that in air quotes, increases your risk to pass away from COVID. So treatments that you would require at the hospital to treat your diabetes that you might be able to put off for a little while were eventually put off for months and months and months at this point, and probably to be put off for months and months and months into the future. So, yeah, take that with a shotgun blast full of salt. There are many other documented and postulated sources of excess deaths, including delayed emergency room visits due to a fear of COVID resulting in postponed or skipped treatments, for heart attacks, strokes. So yeah, not just diabetes, but also heart attack, stroke, cancer, and other ailments, deaths of despair, such as suicides and drug overdoses, which we're going to cover, unfortunately, here in a minute, have increased. Violence has also increased significantly. Additionally, the CDC recently reported an unprecedented 26.5% surge in deaths for adults aged 25 to 44, a group for which COVID is no worse than the flu. Yes, exactly. That is the mythical 99.98% survivability rate. In addition, as 13,000 medical experts, authors, and signers of the Great Barrington Declaration point out, that is the one that says, listen, let's just open this shit up. This fucking COVID shit is way overblown. The deaths and diseases the lockdowns are creating will continue for years. The excess death tolls from the effects of the lockdown will continue to accrue even as COVID dissipates, and it will just continue to get worse the more places lock down, and Ontario is going to be locking down here tomorrow, or I guess tonight at midnight, and Alberta, who fucking knows how long we're going to be in lockdown for. And I don't know if there's anything about a militia in our Bill of Rights or whatever fucking Swiss cheese document we have that currently looks after our rights, but yeah, if somebody's recruiting, feel free to drop a comment in the section down below. In total, every COVID death we could ultimately tally another death from our reaction to COVID. Why is this happening? Why are we treating COVID like no other disease in history? Yeah, watching Democrats attempt to blame the epidemic on President Trump, one cannot escape the sense of political motivation. That's what I detailed in the beginning, so we don't need to go ahead and talk about that as well. But realistically, it's just fucking making everybody's lives a lot more miserable. Okay, that's small businesses, people who worked all of their lives to open up fucking businesses. There are a bunch of anecdotal evidences or anecdotal stories out there saying, you know what, I saved all of my money and I was going to open up a restaurant, and then boom, the pandemic hit. Or, you know what, I was going to save all of my money up and I was going to take that chance. I was going to start my own business. I was going to break off from the job that I was doing extremely well. And then all of a sudden, yep, I got told that I had to go home, and that plan got put on hold. And all of a sudden I'm furloughed at 75% of my base salary, as if that's some kind of a consolation prize. But Yeah, I said we're going to talk about relapses and drug overdoses because this is real, and I understand that this was from like 7 months ago. But to be completely honest, there's a street corner in San Francisco that yeah, has claimed more lives from overdoses than COVID deaths. So this is a pandemic within a pandemic, according to an addictions expert Tim Ryan, who's watched the coronavirus outbreak exacerbate the pre-existing opioid and mental health crisis with devastating effect. Ryan, the star of A&E's 2017 Dope Man special, is the founder of a Man in Recovery Foundation, which partners with Rehab.com, a former heroin addict. His mission to assist others struggling with substance abuse, and the fucker has been busy this year. And yeah, we don't need to take a one-on-one interview to prove this, but as you can see here, this is a relatively brand new article from December 20th from Breitbart here. Overdoses kill 621 in San Francisco thus far in 2020. Coronavirus kills 173. This is what we are dealing with, okay? This is what these people are dealing with. This is what these people's families are dealing with. And I words cannot describe how despicable this is, to be completely honest. Drug overdoses have killed 621 people in San Francisco this year. Nearly 4 times as many people have been killed by COVID-19, according to the San Francisco Chronicle. A report in the Chronicle noted on Saturday 58 more people died of drug overdoses in San Francisco in November, bringing the yearly total to at least 621. That compares to the 441 deaths in all of 2019. Now, why would it be up nearly, probably by the end of the year? You can't, discount the fact that New Year's Eve is going to be coming around, and even though everything's locked down, people will still be dropping dead of overdoses. Unfortunately, it's going to be right around 200 more year over year. Why would that be? Well, stay-at-home orders may have made it harder for some addicts to feed their habit. Those who have continued using drugs have done so in relative isolation, meaning that they are less likely to find the help they need if they have an overdose. Yeah, and you just hear interviews from people who used to be addicts or people who are still trying to fight the disease. You know what? I'll go ahead and make a stand on this one. I think addiction is a disease, okay? We're all predisposed to some sort of addiction, whether it's drugs, whether it's booze. For me, I can tell you about my addiction. I exercise every day. If I don't exercise, I feel fucking funky. And if it has to last over a couple of days, I feel excessively fucking cranky and I just get out of sorts. I don't know if it's a type of withdrawal. To be completely honest with you guys as well, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I've never had a drug. I've never had a drink in my life. And yeah, obviously, you've had friends that, well, here I can at least say it's like I've had friends. It's like, oh, you just had a chicken that was cooked with fucking a can of beer in it, and it's like, okay, all of the alcohol evaporates away. Or I had a friend try to replace my fucking drink with something, some kind of wine and sugar, and just a terrible concoction. I took a sip of it, and it's like, what is that? Oh, it's wine and a whole bunch of stuff. So you can say that you never. And it's like I've never willingly taken a drug or a drink in my body. Okay, obviously, there was stuff when I was way younger, like months old, like teething. There were old strategies way back in the day. Don't judge. And maybe you guys can relate to this as well, but when you're a kid and you're teething, put a little something on your fucking back gums and a kid won't cry as much. I think that happened, but yeah, exactly. But yeah, I stay away from those vices because I know how powerful they are. I know how they affect people. I've seen people. I've been close to people who are fall down drunks, people who can't handle their liquor, people who get addicted to coke, people who, I don't know any heroin addicts. I'm sure I probably went to school with a couple of meth heads. And I was always that guy who his best friends, it looked like the United Nations, to be completely honest. I was always friends with all the natives, a couple of black Israelites. That was fun in high school, being an enormous white guy and just hanging out with a couple of the black kids that just moved into the city. But hey, I didn't give a fuck. If you were cool, I was down to hang out with you. But I seen my native friends from earlier in middle school all the way through high school drop out, smoke weed, and not accomplish anything into their life, okay? They still live probably in their mom's basement. I don't know. He was a really good dude. I'm not going to drop his name I know this will never reach him, but at the same time, I hope they're all doing well. I can also think of another guy who used to be a part of that pot smoking crowd, and yeah, he ended up hooking up with a single mother, and something terrible went on there. Nobody died or anything, but it ended up just being a messy situation, mostly because drugs got involved. Or here's another hilarious story. I used to work at a place, and I was warehouse manager, and it was with a ton of women. And by a ton of women, about 3 dozen. And I was the only dude there, and got along with a bunch of the girls there. And the one was dumb as a box of rocks, but far and away the most beautiful girl I have ever met in my entire life, and we got along fantastically. But she was brain dead, fucking brain dead. And after I quit that job and went back to school, it was one of those things. I was in between summer break, in between years when I was in college getting my exercise physiology degree. We just kind of lost track. She ended up quitting the job there and then doing whatever the fuck she's doing now. And I was just like, okay, whatever happened to her? So I typed in her name, and all of a sudden it's like, yeah, arrest record popped up, and it's like, what was she doing? Transporting drugs. I did 2 things I make terrible decision on: women and careers. So hopefully this one doesn't quite end the exact same way, but I've seen drugs, I've seen alcohol ruin people's lives, and it's something I've never partaken in, and I never want to partake in, because I've seen the tragedy and I understand addiction and the type of hold it can have on you. And this channel deals a lot with personal responsibility, okay? I don't just come on here, I don't just complain about the news. I try to parse it out, try to make it funny. Hopefully you guys find it mildly amusing, at least. That's what I'm hoping for. But I'm also trying to sort the news out so that it makes some sort of sense, something that you can digest and understand how you can make better decisions based on the information that's provided. Like when we're talking about, okay, if Biden's going to end up being inaugurated on January 20th, what can I do about it? Well, you know what? It's not going to change my life a whole hell of a lot up here in Canada. I'm still going to be covering all the stories that are relevant to the day's news. I'm also going to be talking about, different things that affect the way that I think. And that's the only thing you can do. You can't control things that are that out into the ether. All you can do is just make sure that the good information gets out there, and that's what I'm trying to do on here. It seems to be resonating with a whole host of you guys out there. This channel's been far more successful than I thought it was going to be at this point in time, like nearly twice as successful. I would have been happy with 100 subscribers, but we are so far above that, and I'm very thankful, and I think you guys appreciate the sort of working man's approach to the news, trying to have some laughs, trying to figure out what's going on, and how you can write it in order to make your life a much better place for yourself and those you care about. And speaking of which, in one of the other videos today, I don't know how we're going to, the structure today, but we're going to be talking about a man who's had a significant impact on my life. If you haven't already seen that video, I recommend checking it out as well, because we're going to be going over the second chapter, probably the best book to come out in the past 20 years. I can say that for sure. I would love to say of my lifetime, but what I know about books can probably fill a container. And hopefully when it's all said and done, that information can fill a warehouse. But stick around for that. And yeah, as morose as this is, we're going to start talking about much more fun things here in the next couple of videos. Ooh, sorry. Anyways, guys, thank you all very much for the gift of your time, and especially here. It's Christmas, and you shouldn't be watching YouTube videos anyways, but yeah, I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.